Chapter 1. Introduction to Blasphemous. Blasphemous is a dark and atmospheric action platformer released in 2019. Developed by the Spanish studio The Game Kitchen and published by Team 17, it quickly gained attention for its eerie and beautifully grotesque world, steeped in religious iconography and mythology. Drawing heavily on the iconography of Spanish Catholicism, the game weaves a tale of suffering, penance, and redemption through a twisted, nightmarish landscape known as Cvstodia. The game's title, Blasphemous, hints at its challenging confrontation with sin and sacred themes. Players follow the silent protagonist known as the Penitent One, a figure burdened by a terrible curse known as the Miracle. Behind the game's challenging gameplay lies a rich narrative that explores faith, guilt, and the often brutal consequences of devotion in a world infected by fervent zealotry and despair. This narration will guide you through the complete lore of Blasphemous, exploring the tragic origins, key characters, and the dark history that define Cvstodia's tortured existence. Chapter 2. The World of Cvstodia and the Miracle. Cvstodia is a land engulfed in endless suffering and religious fanaticism, a place where the boundary between divine intervention and mortal agony blurs. This bleak realm is governed by a mysterious and powerful phenomenon known as the Miracle, a force whose origin remains obscured but whose impact is undeniable and all-encompassing. The Miracle manifests both as a blessing to the devout and as a punishment to sinners, bending reality to the unyielding will or wrath of a higher power that seems at once vengeful and detached. The land itself twists and groans, with landscapes marked by baroque cathedrals shattered by time, thorny iron structures imprisoning spirits, and grotesque creatures bearing the marks of divine affliction. Each corner of Cvstodia echoes the cries of its inhabitants, who both worship and fear the Miracle, as their bodies and souls suffer transformations that serve as a testament to their devotion and despair. Death does not offer respite here. Instead, souls linger in liminal states, tethered to memories of torment. This spectral persistence fuels a culture steeped in penitential rites, where suffering is not only endured, but honored as the path to redemption. The Miracle's influence colors every aspect of life, from the crumbling architecture to the fearful rituals performed in its name, composing a harsh reflection of medieval Spain's intense religious fervor, reimagined through a nightmarish lens. Against this backdrop, the Penitent One embarks on a desperate odyssey, navigating a harsh, decaying world where faith can kill and salvation is often the hardest price to pay. Chapter 3. Origins of the Penitent One and the Tarnished Crown. At the heart of Cvstodia's tragic cycle stands the Penitent One, a figure both feared and revered, whose story is entwined irrevocably with the Miracle itself. Clad in battle-worn armor and crowned by the capucha, a gnarled helmet shaped like a bleeding and thorned heart, he carries the Tarnished Crown, an ancient, cursed relic embodying the boundless suffering and ambiguous grace granted by the Miracle. Once, he is believed to have been a pilgrim or knight whose identity and past are veiled by silence and time, though fragments of ancient texts and relic lore suggest he may have been chosen by fate or divine decree to bear Cvstodia's collective burden. The Tarnished Crown is no mere symbol. It transmutes agony into both a curse and a source of unearthly power, binding the Penitent One to a path of relentless penance. His silent pilgrimage is marked by blood and sacrifice, as he battles horrific manifestations spawned by blind faith and the cumulative guilt that rots the land. Along the way, the Penitent One uncovers fragmented memories and testimonies from those broken beneath the miracle's weight, revealing not only his own tragic origins, but also the devastating consequences of the curse that colors his every step. His mission is shrouded in uncertainty. Is he the harbinger of salvation, or a prisoner to an endless cycle of pain? His journey becomes a solitary quest into the very heart of suffering and faith, where every wound is both a literal and spiritual testament to his unyielding resolve. Chapter 4. The Order of the Silent Sorrow and Gathering of Sins. At the core of Cvstodia's spiritual infrastructure lies the enigmatic Order of the Silent Sorrow, a somber monastic sect charged with administering rites that both honor and attempt to control the miracle's overwhelming influence. These monks, cloaked in tattered robes and veiled faces, embrace self-inflicted hardships and silence as means to mediate between humanity and the divine cruelty that fells them. Their penances manifest in ritualized acts, piercing, flagellation, and the acceptance of wounds that aim to absorb and atone for accumulated sins, channeling them into a form of sacred suffering. However, the Order's efforts often backfire, spawning mutations and madness among its brethren, creating tragic figures who embody sorrow incarnate. The Penitent One encounters scattered remnants of this fractured order, whose members bear relics and curses linked directly to the miracle's caprices. As the miracle's reach grows unstable from the mounting mass of unatoned sins, it breeds grotesque abominations, monsters, and fallen penitents warped to grotesque extremes. These incarnations of lust, pride, wrath, despair, and other sins haunt the landscape, serving as both literal and moral obstacles. The Penitent One not only fights these fallen sinners, but also must grapple with the theological implications of mercy and justice, twisted beyond recognition. The Order's silent vigilance paints a picture of a faith that has grown desperate and malevolent, a history of sorrow imprinted on the very soul of Cvstodia. Chapter 5. The Guilt and Trials of the Penitent One. The Penitent One's odyssey is defined by a relentless series of trials that test his physical endurance, spiritual fortitude, and unwavering resolve. In many ways, his journey mirrors that of ancient pilgrims, fraught with hardship and the constant threat of despair. Each confrontation with monstrous embodiments of sin is itself a cruel ritual, forcing the Penitent One to face not only external horrors, but the weight of his own guilt and suffering. These trials range from ferocious combat against corrupted saints and tortured spirits to surmounting agonizing curses and blessings that sap his strength or offer fleeting divine power. The Tarnished crown's capricious force waxes and wanes, granting powers at times and inflicting cruel torment at others. Throughout these ordeals, the Penitent One reveals himself as more than a knight. He becomes a vessel carrying Cvstodia's collective pain, the last hope to break, or at least endure, the miracle's merciless cycle. Each victory uncovers shards of truth about the world's afflictions and the cost paid by both sinner and savior. His trials emphasize that in Cvstodia, faith is not a shield, but a crucible, forging resilience out of despair and compelling endless confrontation with both outer enemies and inner shadows. Chapter 6. The Weeping Chamber and the Role of Prayer. Prayer pervades Cvstodia's tormented existence and finds its most profound expression in the Weeping Chamber, a sacred yet haunting sanctuary where the faithful gather to petition mercy or bear witness to divine wrath. The chamber is a place steeped in solemnity, where muffled weeping and chanting form an eerie symphony that echoes alongside the scent of burnt incense and the cold gleam of blood-stained relics. Pilgrims and penitents alike come seeking solace, relief, or answers in their ceaseless torment, forming long lines to touch vestiges believed to transcend mortal pain. The Penitent One often finds himself interpreting these prayers not as mere rituals, but as keys that unlock hidden pathways or summon supernatural aid in his quest. However, prayer in Cvstodia is fraught with peril. While it can invoke blessings and protection, it equally risks invoking deeper curses, inflaming the cruelty of the miracle. The chamber's atmosphere encapsulates this paradox. Faith here is both a beacon of hope and a call to suffering, a place where the desperate plead for peace, yet frequently only deepen their wounds. Through this sacred space, the narrative explores the intricate bond between devotion and despair, reflecting the fragile balance between spiritual light and shadow within Cvstodia's broken world. Chapter 7. The Fractured Church and Political Intrigue. The church within Cvstodia is far from a unified spiritual institution. It is a fractured network, rife with factions vying for influence, each interpreting the miracle according to divergent dogmas and ambitions. Behind its decaying cathedrals and cloistered halls, political machinations unfold amidst threats, betrayals, and secret pacts. Some clergy wield faith as a weapon, manipulating the sufferings of the populace to amass power, wealth, and control, while others sacrifice themselves to preserve or purify a doctrine increasingly corrupted by zealotry. These factions range from ultra-conservative zealots enforcing harsh orthodoxy to clandestine rebels seeking reform or even heresy. The Penitent One's journey thrusts him into this fractious arena where alliances are forged and broken and trust is perilous. His encounters with church officials reveal the human cost of power struggles masked as spiritual endeavors and how faith can be twisted into a tool of oppression just as much as hope. The political landscape of Cvstodia highlights a critical theme, that religious devotion, when entangled with worldly ambition, often deepens suffering. The Penitent One must navigate this complex web, discerning friend from foe as he pursues his mission, underscoring that in Cvstodia, faith is as much a battleground as the desolate plains and tortured crypts. Chapter 8. Cradle of Affliction and the Birth of the Miracle. The Cradle of Affliction marks the somber birthplace of the miracle and the genesis of Cvstodia's catastrophic cycle. This ancient and mystic location exists where the realms of mortals and the divine violently intersected, an event described in numerous legends as a celestial cataclysm or a punishment from higher powers. Prior to this upheaval, Cvstodia was a land of simpler faith and mortal frailty, where humanity struggled with ambition, sin, and redemption in more recognizable forms. The arrival of the miracle shattered this fragile balance, transforming the land and its people into a nightmarish reflection of divine judgment and eternal suffering. Geological scars, unnatural flora, and unsettling fauna serve as physical reminders of this event. The cradle's very soil is saturated with the paradox of hope and despair, embodying divine wrath forged from human fragility. The Penitent One's connection to the cradle is profound. His cursed existence is a living testament to that first blasphemous spark. Whether a miracle or malediction remains unclear. Unearthing the cradle's mysteries reveals that the miracle's origins are tangled with themes of sacrifice, betrayal, and an overwhelming attempt to bind mortal suffering to celestial purpose. His quest is an attempt to reconcile these distant but fundamental truths, shaping the fate of all who remain trapped beneath the miracle's shadow. Chapter 9. Key Figures: Deogracias and Esdras. Within Custodia's vast and agonized lore, two seminal figures stand out, Deogracias and Esdras, each embodying diametrically opposed approaches to the miracle and faith itself. Deogracias is remembered as a saint-like figure, whose life and writings celebrate compassion, mercy, and the difficult endeavor to understand and contain the miracle through kindness and sacrifice. His legacy influences those seeking redemption through empathy and healing, his teachings offering guidance and hope to the Penitent One amid darkness. Conversely, Esdras presents a harsher path, a fervent zealot whose rigid interpretation of faith emphasizes judgment, suffering, and unforgiving penance. His doctrines harden the hearts of believers, intensifying Custodia's spiraling torment and fracturing communities through dogmatic cruelty. These two represent not only conflicting religious ideologies, but the eternal tension between mercy and severity, hope and despair. The Penitent One's encounters with their legacies through relics, places, and adversaries reveal a theological struggle that transcends mortal history, touching on universal questions about faith's purpose. The intertwined fates of Deogracias and Esdras shape the religious landscape, showing how belief can simultaneously elevate and devastate, casting long shadows that test both the body and soul of Custodia. Chapter 10. The Role of the Convent of Our Lady of the Charred Visage. The Convent of Our Lady of the Charred Visage holds a somber, almost enigmatic place in Custodia's complex spiritual geography. Dedicated to a dark Marian figure whose visage is forever marred by fire and sorrow, this convent stands as both a place of refuge and a crucible of extreme penitential practices. The nuns inhabiting the convent embrace the harshest forms of self-purification, combining ritual firewalking, the tending of living wounds, and silent prayers in a grim pursuit to cleanse sin through suffering and destruction. The convent's architecture is a stark blend of charred wood and ice-blue stone, echoing the dual nature of fire's destructive and purifying powers. The Penitent One's encounters here reveal layers of the miracle previously hidden, deep truths about the nature of destruction as a pathway to spiritual rebirth, and the paradox of sanctity forged through anguish. The rituals performed at the convent resonate deeply with the Penitent One's own burden, echoing his journey through pain and the search for meaning amid devastation. This sanctuary's paradox illustrates a broader theme central to Custodia, that redemption often arises from the ashes of ruin, and that suffering itself can become both a curse and a sacrament. Chapter 11. The Legacy of the Penitents and the Endless Pilgrimage. Within Custodia, penitents embody a timeless and relentless tradition of pilgrimage, an endless quest for salvation through suffering and penance that defines both personal identity and communal fate. These journeys blend physical endurance with spiritual turmoil, where every step worn into the cold stone and thorn-laden paths echoes the collective pain of countless souls who have gone before. The Penitent One is both the latest participant and a symbol of this aching lineage, representing the hope and despair that fuel this ceaseless cycle. Pilgrimage routes crisscross Custodia's cursed geography, marked by shrines, relics, and memorials that commemorate faded heroes and forgotten sins, serving as both milestones and reminders of the inescapable miracle. Every traveler's suffering feeds the ongoing miracle's power, renewing the land's curse and deepening the spiritual bonds that bind the living and dead. The Penitent One's encounters with other pilgrims and relic sites reveal the cyclical nature of suffering as both punishment and purpose, a metaphysical loop from which escape seems impossible, yet is endlessly sought. This enduring tradition highlights the tragic beauty and crushing hopelessness of Custodia's mythos, that the quest for forgiveness is both a burden and a beacon, illuminating the darkest paths of human experience. Chapter 12. Obras and the Bastions of Faith. Scattered across Cvstodia's harsh terrain lie the Obras, monumental bastions where faith and authority merge to guard knowledge, relics, and doctrinal purity. These fortified monasteries, sprawling chapels, and iron-barred fortresses operate as centers of worship, research, and control, where the faithful guard weapons forged in sacred fire alongside ancient manuscripts bearing esoteric truths about the miracle. The inhabitants of Obras are often warrior monks, zealously devoted to protecting Cvstodia from heresy, internal corruption, and the horrors spawned by the miracle. Their grim militancy reflects the rigidification of faith into a martial doctrine, where divine power is wielded as a weapon of unyielding justice. The Penitent One's passage through these bastions is fraught with tension. Some Obras offer sanctuary and fragments of forbidden knowledge, while others reject or confront him as a threat to their established order. The archives within the Obras conceal fragments of lost history and dangerous secrets, deepening the Penitent One's understanding of the miracle's origins and its catastrophic consequences. The Obras thus symbolize Cvstodia's transformation from sacred land to militarized battleground, a place where faith inspires as much violence as salvation, underscoring the tenuous nature of divine favor in a tortured world. Chapter 13. The Tarnished Path. Allies and Enemies. Journeying deeper into Cvstodia, the Penitent One encounters a woven tapestry of allies and adversaries, each shaped by the fractured spiritual and political landscape of this troubled realm. Companions range from withered mystics who offer cryptic wisdom and healing powers, to scarred warriors who share echoes of pain and resolve. These relationships bring essential aid, insight, and emotional resonance to the Penitent One's quest, illustrating diverse responses to the miracle's torment. Conversely, adversaries appear as terror incarnate, monstrous beings spawned from corrupted faith, rival zealots enforcing orthodoxy with brutal zeal, and fallen penitents consumed by despair. These foes and friends are often separated by subtle ideological fractures or tragic misapprehensions, emphasizing the blurred lines between salvation and damnation, loyalty and betrayal. Through dialogue, confrontation, and shared hardship, the Penitent One must discern sincerity from fanaticism, decide who to trust, and maintain his own steadfastness amid overwhelming sorrow. Each alliance or enmity unfolds layers of Cvstodia's multifaceted narrative, revealing alternative paths and philosophies regarding faith, suffering, and redemption. Together, they highlight that the Penitent One's battle is not only external, but also an inner struggle to reconcile competing beliefs in a world overrun by despair. Chapter 14. The Penitent One's Trials. Confronting the Cleansing Flame. Among the crucial trials that mark the Penitent One's path is the haunting challenge of the Cleansing Flame, a metaphoric and literal crucible of fire designed to purify body and soul. To walk through this inferno is to surrender fully to painful purification, confronting internal demons alongside external dangers. The flame, cold and blue in its unnatural light, symbolizes faith's paradoxical nature in Cvstodia. It is merciful in its desire to cleanse, but brutal in its capacity to destroy. The Penitent One endures blistering heat and sharp, living flames that punish weakness and sin alike, stripping away illusions and revealing hidden truths beneath layers of suffering. This trial is a rite of passage that tests not only his physical resilience, but his spiritual fortitude, demanding he maintain unwavering belief even as the fire threatens to consume him entirely. Success through the cleansing flame grants him passage to deeper mysteries and secrets of the miracle, revealing that purification requires sacrifice and that faith is both a shield and a consuming fire. This fiery ordeal encapsulates the game's central motifs: resilience through pain, the tension between mercy and judgment, and the harsh realities of redemption in a broken world. Chapter 15. The Miracle's Paradoxes: Salvation and Damnation. The miracle embodies the fundamental paradox plaguing Cvstodia, an entity of simultaneous blessing and curse, where salvation and damnation coexist in a delicate, torturous balance. This enigmatic force grants healing and divine empowerment to the faithful, mending broken bodies and inspiring awe. Yet it also warps flesh, distorts minds, and incites madness in equal measure. The inhabitants of Cvstodia both revere the miracle as a sign of divine favor and dread its corrupting touch. The Penitent One witnesses countless tragic vignettes revealing this duality. A family healed only to be fractured by uncontrollable madness. A village uplifted through a miracle, then destroyed by a wrathful divine backlash. The miracle's unpredictable nature calls into question the true cost of faith, asking if belief can survive without succumbing to despair when burdened with such unbearable trials. Through the Penitent One's journey, this ambivalence manifests as a central theme. Faith is neither wholly redemptive nor entirely destructive, but an intricate dance between light and shadow that shapes the fate of every soul in Cvstodia. The miracle's paradox reflects the fragile nature of hope, the cyclical torment of belief, and the arduous path toward an uncertain salvation. Chapter 16. Penitents' Burdens and Relics of Power. In Cvstodia, relics, sacred artifacts imbued with the miracle's enigmatic energy, carry immense spiritual weight and profound consequences. These objects range from weapons and armor to ancient manuscripts, each bearing blessings that confer power, but simultaneously acting as tests of the wielder's purity, strength, and resolve. The Penitent One's own sword and armor are relics forged in sacrifice and divine judgment, steeped in the blood and prayers of countless souls. Possession of such relics is a delicate privilege. They can amplify both the wearer's virtues and their flaws, unlocking formidable abilities or, conversely, deepening curses. As the Penitent One gathers these powerful artifacts, his transformation mirrors the stages of penance and spiritual awakening that define Cvstodia's mythos. Each relic carries its own story of sacrifice and suffering, serving as a tangible reminder of the inescapable bonds between mortal frailty and divine power. These burdens are heavy, yet they are necessary tools for confronting the terrors and mysteries ahead, guiding the Penitent One closer to understanding the miracle and his own cursed purpose. Chapter 17. The Penitent One's Silence and the Weight of Solitude. The Penitent One is a silent figure whose quiet endurance speaks louder than words. His muteness is a defining element of his identity, symbolizing remarkable resilience amid unrelenting suffering and profound isolation. In a land overwhelmed by cries of pain and desperate pleas for mercy, his silence sets him apart as a stoic pillar of unwavering faith and determination. The absence of speech invites reflection on the nature of strength. True devotion is often expressed not through words, but through sacrifice and resolute action. This solitude heightens the melancholic tone of Cvstodia, where faith isolates as much as it connects, leaving penitents to wrestle with their burdens in silence. Throughout the journey, moments of profound quiet underscore the gravity of the Penitent One's mission and the weight of the world on his shoulders. His silence is not emptiness, but a shield and a sign of inner contemplation, hinting at secrets about his past and purpose that slowly unravel. It is a profound meditation on solitary suffering as both a punishment and a sacred rite, an internal struggle that shapes the very core of the narrative and the silent hero who carries it. Chapter 18. The Role of the Cradle Tree and the Living Roots. At the pulsating heart of Cvstodia lies the titanic Cradle Tree, ancient beyond memory and believed to be the living vessel or source of the miracle's overwhelming presence. This colossal, gnarled tree stretches its twisted branches high, as if attempting to touch both heaven and hell, while its living roots snake underground, intertwining Cvstodia's physical terrain with its spiritual undercurrents. Many inhabitants regard the Cradle Tree as sacred, an axis mundi connecting mortal suffering with divine will, though some fear its influence as a corrupting force. The tree's roots crawl slowly beneath the land, infusing the soil and creatures with the miracle's transforming power, creating both sanctified flora and twisted monstrosities alike. The Penitent One confronts these living roots not only as physical hindrances, but as symbolic conduits of Cvstodia's unending affliction. Explorations around the cradle expose the cyclical nature of life, death, faith, and suffering, revealing the complex interplay between mortal desperation and cosmic design. It remains an enigmatic sentinel, a paradoxical emblem of hope's fragile persistence and doom's inevitable approach. The Penitent One's struggle to understand and engage with the Cradle Tree represents his larger quest to untangle the miraculous from the blasphemous, the sacred from the profane. Chapter 19. The Penitent One's Quest, Seeking the Origin of the Curse. The Penitent One's journey is ultimately a desperate search for answers, an attempt to pierce through the veils of myth and despair to uncover the source of his curse and the origin of the miracle itself. Central to this quest is the legendary Fountain of Tears, a mythical wellspring said to hold the power to sever the chains of suffering and reunite fractured souls with redemption. Navigating labyrinthine corridors, forsaken temples, and hidden archives, the Penitent One pieces together long-forgotten histories and cryptic prophecies scattered throughout Cvstodia. Along this path, he faces not only monstrous entities born of corrupted faith, but also the haunting shadows of his own doubts, guilt, and memories he barely recalls. Allies and fragments of knowledge guide him, but trust is fraught in a realm steeped in betrayal and fanaticism. At the journey's heart lies a poignant choice: to attempt to extinguish the miracle's eternal cycle, risking annihilation and the unknown, or to accept the curse's unending presence and strive to endure within its bounds. The fate of Cvstodia hinges on the Penitent One's resolve and choices, making his quest a linchpin between despair and hope, destruction and rebirth. His silent footsteps carve a path through sorrow, faith, and relentless sacrifice. Chapter 20. The Conflagration of Faith, Battles Against Heresy and Apostasy. Cvstodia's society is engulfed in a relentless conflagration of faith, where zealotry fuels violent purges against heresy, apostasy, and any perceived defiance from orthodox doctrine. The Church's militant arm, wielding power both spiritual and martial, leads these purges with merciless vigor. They conduct public trials, brutal executions, and harrowing rituals of torture designed not only to punish, but also to instill terror and reinforce unyielding conformity. The Penitent One faces not only beasts and cursed creatures bred by the miracle,
but also human foes who enforce doctrinal purity with fanatical fervor. These campaigns of faith reflect how belief, once a source of healing, becomes an instrument of oppression and cruelty. The darkest enclaves of Cvstodia reveal the enormous human toll paid for obedience, where mercy is subjugated to fear and suspicion. In this charged and violent atmosphere, the Penitent One's mission grows more complex and dangerous, forcing him to confront the devastating consequences of fanaticism that tears communities apart and perpetuates cycles of violence and despair. His struggle illustrates the tragic paradox of faith weaponized against its own followers, and the thorny path to salvation that remains clouded by blood and fire.
Chapter 21. The Cries of the Forsaken. Souls lost to the miracle. Beneath the battered surface of Cvstodia lies a realm of endless sorrow, where the souls forsaken by grace writhe in purgatorial torment, forever lost to the insidious hold of the miracle. These spirits, twisted and scarred by their earthly sins or unjust judgments, wail in ceaseless agony that reverberates through shattered cathedrals, desolate crypts, and ancient valleys. Many were victims of cruel fate or misplaced faith, having been denied redemption by rigid dogma and unyielding authority. The Penitent One must confront these restless souls, some desperate and pleading for release, others consumed by bitterness and rage, lashing out at any who approach. Their mournful cries serve as a spectral reminder of the tragic outcomes born from faith distorted by cruelty and fear. This ghostly lamentation deepens the narrative's meditation on suffering, illuminating the profound cost of redemption and the fragile lines separating salvation from oblivion. By facing these forsaken spirits, the Penitent One confronts not just external horrors, but the lamentable consequences of a world where divine grace is withheld or twisted beyond recognition. Chapter 22. The Shrine of the Silent Sorrow, Sanctuary or Prison. The Shrine of the Silent Sorrow stands as a study in contradictions, a sanctified refuge for penitents seeking relief and strength, yet also a prison where souls are bound in cycles of endless suffering. Its vaulted halls, heavy with incense and echoing silent prayers, are tended by monks who maintain a delicate and painful balance between hope and despair. They perform sacred rites meant to soothe damaged spirits, but these rituals often prolong or complicate the torment they aim to alleviate. The Penitent One's visits to the shrine reveal its ambiguous nature, a place where salvation is both possible yet perilously elusive, and where the acts of mercy sometimes mirror punishment. The shrine houses numerous relics of faith alongside instruments of penance, epitomizing the blurred lines between comfort and cruelty inherent in Cvstodia. It is a place suffused with haunting beauty and severe austerity, reflecting the paradox that true endurance requires not just strength, but acceptance of suffering as a sacred duty. Through this liminal space, the narrative probes deeper spiritual questions about the coexistence of reverence and agony, sanctuary and bondage, an evocative microcosm of Cvstodia's tortured reality. Chapter 23. The Penitent One's Final Confrontations. As the Penitent One approaches the culmination of his harrowing pilgrimage, he faces trials fraught with profound consequences. These final confrontations pit him against the deepest sources of the miracle's curse and unearth devastating truths buried in Cvstodia's ancient history. Challenged to the utmost limits of combat skill and spiritual endurance, he must battle divine entities, titanic fallen saints, and spectral manifestations embodying both judgment and mercy.
Each encounter strips away layers of illusion, forcing the Penitent One to confront the true nature of sacrifice, the paradox of salvation, and the heavy cost of blasphemy that has shaped his world. These battles are as much about confronting inner despair and faith's ambiguities as about physical victory. The Penitent One's resolve is tested in ways that define his destiny and that of Cvstodia itself, blurring the line between hero and martyr. Ultimately, these final confrontations underscore the game's central theme, that redemption in Cvstodia requires not only courage, but profound acceptance of pain's role in shaping human and divine fates.
Chapter 24. The Resurrection and the Cycle of Suffering. Following the Penitent One's ultimate trials comes a sobering revelation. The cycle of the miracle endures, locking Cvstodia and its denizens in an unyielding pattern of death, resurrection, and perpetual suffering. No matter the heroism or sacrifice, his efforts ripple through the fabric of existence only to rekindle the same torment he sought to end. Resurrection here is not renewal, but a bittersweet return, where life persists only through continued penance and enduring pain. This eternal recurrence encapsulates the tragic heart of Cvstodia's mythology. Suffering and faith exist in an inseparable embrace, and true liberation demands moving beyond conventional ideas of salvation to a place of acceptance, transformation, and understanding. The Penitent One's fate reflects this somber truth, caught between hope and despair, trapped in an endless loop unless a deeper, possibly unknowable force intervenes. This cycle offers a nuanced meditation on human nature and divine judgment, suggesting that redemption is not a simple heroic victory, but a complex spiritual passage. While the cycle may be relentless, within it lies a fragile glimmer of hope, that even in suffering, transformation and meaning are possible, if elusive. The Penitent One, and by extension Cvstodia itself, stand at this crossroads, embodying the eternal struggle between torment and transcendence. Chapter 25. Conclusion. The Enduring Legacy of Blasphemous. Blasphemous offers a haunting exploration of faith, guilt, and redemption, set within a richly imagined world of suffering and divine wrath. The journey of the Penitent One through Cvstodia is one of tragic beauty, confronting the paradoxes of a world where blasphemy and piety coexist in painful harmony. The lore reveals a society shaped by centuries of pain and devotion, where salvation is elusive and the line between sinner and saint is blurred by the unforgiving hand of the miracle. Ultimately, Blasphemous invites reflection on the nature of belief, the costs of fanaticism, and the enduring human spirit amid impossible odds. The Penitent One's tale is a testament to resilience, illuminating a landscape where darkness is both a challenge and a sacred test. The game's narrative closes not with simple answers, but with a profound meditation on the cyclical nature of suffering and the fragile hope that drives those who carry the heaviest burdens of faith.